This is a first for BMW, the company that professed to make the ultimate driving machines. It's a lightweight, mass-produced electric car that you can go out and buy today. You'll have witnessed its development. The electric Mini E was the first stage, while 2012's 1 Series coupe-based Active E was the second. It's called the i3, and it's the first car from the eco-focused i sub-brand. The best place to start is with its name, the i3. There's no Apple tie-up here. I is BMW's name for all things eco. BMWs tend to stand out due to their design. Usually it's because they're quite handsome cars, current 1 Series aside, but the i3 is certainly different. Because the i3's engine doesn't need acres of space, it doesn't have a massive bonnet to house it, and because the i3 needs to be efficient, it needs to be as aerodynamic as possible, and BMW has made no attempt to hide that. I mean, check out the kidney grille. That's been sealed off to make sure the car is as slippery as possible. Same goes for the tyres. They're skinny, low rolling resistance jobbers, and they're not hidden. They're on full display, even though they're much, much smaller than you get on things even as small as a Mini. If the i3 doesn't need it, it doesn't have it. Because it's an electric car, you can't have too much by way of chunk on board. Its 167 brake horsepower motor has to propel not only the bank of batteries, but also seats, toys, and all the gubbins that people leave in their cars. And it has to do that for a decent distance. You get 80 to 100 miles of range out of the i3. That's if you go for the pure EV version. However, you can get a range extended version which adds a 650cc motorcycle engine into the mix. What that does is it generates a little bit more electricity if you run out of pure battery puff, say in the middle of nowhere, or you forgot to charge it overnight and that kind of thing. Now, the extra engine does add a little bit more weight, 120 kilos on top of the pure EV's 1,195, but that's still less than a Nissan Leaf. 0 to 62 takes 7.9 seconds, where the EV takes just 7.2. You may be wondering just how BMW kept the i3's weight down, and the answer is 4 little letters: CFRP. Carbon fibre reinforced plastic. The passenger compartment is made out of the stuff and it keeps the weight nice and low. Now that means you can get further off of fewer batteries, and the acceleration, as I mentioned before, is pretty good. The entire car though isn't made out of the stuff. The underbody bit, where all the EV gubbins is kept, well, that's made out of aluminium, which in the context of the car seems a little weighty. BMW's done lots to make sure the i3 handles on real roads rather than the silky smooth ones found in Europe, which is a bonus. As a driving experience, this isn't an EV that means you have to compromise. You don't lose any car to get an electric car, if that makes any sense. You can jump out of a hatchback and jump into this and everything feels pretty much the same. There's no real compromise. Nothing's really had to be lost. There are a couple of minor differences, the biggest, I suppose, being the brakes. You don't actually have to use them. The moment you lift off the throttle, the car brakes for you basically and recoups all the energy from the spinning wheels and puts it back into the batteries, giving you a little bit of extra charge and a little bit of extra go. Lifting off basically stops the car dead. You don't really need to use the brakes whatsoever. Performance-wise, the i3 is a pretty sprightly little thing. On its launch in the UK, BMW had a little bit of a drag race between an i3 and an E92 M3. It was 0 to 60, and up until about 35-40 odd, this little beastie destroyed it. It was a pretty spectacular sight to behold, and in town it is so useful. You can get off the lights really quickly. If you see a gap, you can just dart into it. There are 3 driving modes in the i3. There's Comfort, which is basically the normal mode it defaults to, and it is very comfortable. You get all the performance it has on offer, you get all the climate control, all the toys, and then you have Eco Pro, which makes things even more eco, everything's a bit more grabby, and then Eco Pro Plus, which is the one I like to keep it in. You can't use climate control, and the top speed's limited to 90 kilometers an hour, but you do get loads and loads of range out of it, so much so that I drove it down the M4 to get it to London for this shoot, and I still haven't used a full charge yet. I've still got 21 miles to go, and I've driven 76 miles in it, so it can actually live up to its range claims. That is deeply, deeply impressive. Like any good BMW, the i3 is rear-wheel drive. And that's pretty cool because it means the car pushes itself along and lets the steering do its own thing, which is why it steers so incredibly well. Again, as you would expect a BMW to do. As interiors go, I really like it. It's very, very strange. It's like nothing I've ever sat in. Not for the whole kind of, oh, it's amazing and so beautiful and swoopy. No, it's because it looks like a car of the future, such as the i3 is, should. Everything you see in this interior is reclaimed or recycled in some way. So the body panels here and the stuff on the dash, that's all been recycled. It's all now reused to be the dashboard of your lovely new car. The wood on the dash is eucalyptus, again, reclaimed, recycled. That's the whole ethos of this car. It's good for the environment. It's using what's around it. Nothing about this car is analog. It's all digital. Everything's electric. It's a car that embraces the future. It doesn't look like a normal car because it doesn't have to, whereas you get the likes of the Leaf, it just looks like a boring family hatchback and a Spade all in one. But this, it looks like a car from the future. It drives like a car from the future. Are we in the future? Cars like this are now on people's radars. If BMW's doing it, then it's certainly something to pay attention to. There's a problem though, and it's a problem that doesn't just knacker the i3, range extender or not, but pretty much every electric car. The i3 will do 100 miles on a single charge, and if you got the right kind of plug, you can charge it in about 3 hours. However, I don't think it's ideal for the kind of people who live in megacities, the people who the i3 was designed for. You see, you can't easily hang a charge cable out of a 10-story apartment window, and we know that there won't be a charge point on every single street corner. However, if you live in a house or just outside of town or have easy access to a charging point, then this might be the ideal EV for you because it has one thing that most people don't have. It has a brain. Because when it finds a better way of getting you to your destination, it'll tell you. That includes, say, when you're stuck in traffic and the car knows you're about to run out of juice. What it'll do is it'll point you towards the nearest free charging station, tell you to plug it in, and then send you off to the nearest train or bus station so you can then get to your destination. And when you return, you'll have a fully charged car and you can toddle off home as though nothing had happened. And BMW also knows that there are limitations to EVs, and you might need another car for a different situation. For example, a family holiday, trips to the dump, trips to IKEA, or maybe just a sports car for the weekend. As such, what they've got is they've got a system where you can borrow a more suitable vehicle for a limited amount of time. So you need an X5, you can borrow one. Fancy a Z4 for a weekend, you can have one of those as well. That's clever and forward thinking. So what BMW's done is made an EV that's quick, good looking, well finished, and will look after you if its capabilities are maxed out. It might not be the ultimate driving machine, but it is a solution to a problem that's becoming more and more prevalent. The motor car, as we know it at least, is slowly but surely being hunted. And cars like the i3 that offer the best of the green world, but in BMW's case especially, can offer a sports car or an SUV for those times when you absolutely need one, might just be the pull that people need to get their green on. I did tell you it was clever.